In California law, there are a number of provisions in the California Government Code that deal with public officers and public employees. There are some specific prohibitions on certain specified officers that are contained in Title I, Division 4 of the California Government Code. Again, these provisions deal with public officers and employees. And in Chapter 1 of Article 4, there are specified prohibitions that are applicable to certain officers in the state. Article 4 contains sections 1090 to 1099, and many people have heard of section 1090. The provisions of Article 4 were actually enacted way back in 1943. So I wanted to cover some of them. They have caught up some elected officials, including a number of years ago, the then Superintendent of Public Instruction. So Government Code Section 1090 generally prohibits members of the legislature, as well as state, county, district, judicial, and city officers or employees from having a financial interest in any contract made by them in their official capacity or with any entity or board of which they're members. Section 1090 also prohibits any state, county, district, judicial, or city officers or employees from being purchasers at any sale or vendors at any purchase that's made by them in their official capacity. Also, Section 1090 prohibits an individual from aiding or abetting any of these officials, officers, or employees in violating the law. Section 1090.1 of the Government Code also prohibits any officers or employees of the state or any members of the legislature from accepting any commissions for the placement of insurance on behalf of the state of California. Section 1091 specifies when an officer is deemed not to be interested in a particular contract that's been entered into by either a body or a board of which that officer is a member. Section 1091.1 says that the prohibition against an interest in contracts is not deemed to prohibit a public officer or member of a public board or commission from subdividing lands that they own or in which they have an interest. Section 1091.2 says that Section 1090, the first one we mentioned, doesn't apply to contracts or grants made by local workforce investment boards. Section 1091.3 specifies that Section 1090 doesn't apply to contracts or grants made by county children and families commissions. And then Section 1091.4 defines what a remote interest is to include a person who has a financial interest in a contract if certain specified conditions are actually met. Then Section 1091.5 details when an officer or employee is deemed to not be interested in a contract. Section 1092 requires that every contract that's made in violation of 1090 is or can be avoided by any party. Section 1093 specifies that the treasurer and the controller or relevant county or city officers and their deputies are prohibited from purchasing or selling certain warrants, orders, demands, claims, or other evidence of indebtedness against the state or a county or a city. Section 1098 says that a current public officer or employee who willfully and knowingly discloses for pecuniary gain or uses somehow any information that results or has the purpose of pecuniary gain to that individual is guilty of a misdemeanor. Section 1099 prohibits any public officer, such as appointed or elected members of governmental boards and commissions or other bodies, from holding two public offices at the same time that might be incompatible. And this section actually specifies that certain offices are incompatible under certain specified circumstances, unless they are compelled or expressly authorized by law. And then also pursuant to Section 1099, when two public offices are incompatible, the public officer is deemed to have forfeited the first office when he or she gets to the second office. But this section doesn't apply to positions of employment, such as civil service positions. It also doesn't apply to any sections, it doesn't apply where somebody serves only in an advisory capacity to a governmental body. And then the last provision of Section 1099 is actually a codification of the common law rule that prohibits an individual from holding incompatible public offices.